What I want to do is evaluate the term exorcism and to look deeply into things like spirit and demonic possessions and how these terms are used in both the Eastern and Western cultures, such as Asian shamanism and Christianity, and how we can better understand like what it means to do an exorcism and how it can be done successfully by looking at a cross-cultural viewpoint. So this video is going to be about those things and specifically about exorcisms. So basically, I want to look at the definition for the word exorcism. It's the expulsion or attempted expulsion of an evil spirit from a person or place. Now, exorcisms have been around probably since the time of Christ, if not earlier. And many people have evaluated the term in regards to how it affects a civilization and society, and whether it's cause for concern by physicians as a mental health issue. Now, there are certain things that do characterize themselves as being legitimate forms of demonic and spirit possession. But in those definitions and instances, sometimes a lot of these exorcisms are not performed appropriately and can cause or wreak havoc or oftentimes tragedy and death. What is important to be evaluated during these points is to look at it from a cross-cultural perspective. And what I want to do is to go deeper into the issue of something called Shinbyung. Now, Shinbyung is, I'll read you the definition. Shinbyung, also called self-loss, is the possession from a god that a chosen mu or shaman goes through in the Korean shamanic tradition. It is said to be accompanied by physical pain and psychosis. Believers would assert that the physical and mental symptoms are not subject to medical treatment, but may only be cured through acceptance of and full communion with the Spirit. Now, these symptoms that are caused by Shinbyung is anxiety, somatic complaints, general weakness, dizziness, fear, anorexia, insomnia, gastrointestinal problems, subsequent disassociation and possession by ancestral spirits. Now, these are the elements that are characterized in a person that is experiencing possession, and through these characteristics and behaviors for someone that has been possessed, this in the Korean society is called Shinbyung, and in essence, it's an attempt to find someone that is a future shaman. Now, in the Korean society, they believe like in Muism or the Mudongs, which are the exorcists in Korean society. They believe that once a person becomes possessed or is taken over or whatever, any signs of possession is a sign in which it's time for a psychic to intervene and to evoke the demon or the spirit from the person in order to communicate important facts such as, their purpose, their reasoning, and what messages that they might have for humanity. And many of these things called Goots, I think they're called, um, they're they're done in a way to do an exorcism. And this it requires incense, blood rituals like a sacrifice of an animal. I mean, it gets pretty intense, and it's oftentimes viewed as a form of, I don't know, black magic, or in Western cultures, it would side a lot along the lines of satanic rituals, because they're using elements that are derivative of like Neolithic activities and rituals that have spanned for thousands of years. So in the Eastern culture, this thing called Shinbyung is actually considered something of a psychosis that is based off of a spirit possession in which only a shaman is able to do the exorcism, and to release this and to provide the person that had been possessed become a vehicle to the gods or spirits and be able to channel these. Now, I don't feel that that is a bad thing, because in essence, a person only becomes possessed if it is evoking a spirit or a divine higher being is deciding that, giving permission to a demon or entity to take possession of a person's physical being. So, in essence, the person that is originally possessed by a spirit or demon in the shaman religions of Korea, they in themselves become in the lineage and rankings of shamans themselves, because they become valuable assets because they have been exposed to Shinbyung, their abilities to communicate with the dead, to communicate with the gods, to communicate with spirits. They become the vehicle, the vessel for these things, and they are able to do the rituals. That said, we need to look at it in terms of success rate too, and why, in some instances there is tragedy associated with these, but there's been tragedy a lot on both sides. When we even look at Western culture, where there's a lot more tragedy, resulting from the Catholics and not really knowing what to do during times of spirit possession. So that's the next topic I will address. Now, spirit possession goes in line with a lot of religions throughout the world. I mean, it spans through Catholicism, Voodoo, Islam, Christianity, it spans the world. So there is evidence throughout history that people have demonstrated supernatural powers as a result of being possessed, or behavior that is dangerous or deviant. To better understand the concepts behind, say, Christianity and its association with demonic possession or spirit possession. Let me, it, I need to define it, and in order to define it, this is how it is defined. It's believed to be, by some, to be the process by which individuals are possessed by malevolent, preternatural beings, commonly referred to as demons or devils, and symptoms of demonic possessions often include erased memories or personalities, convulsions, epileptic seizures or fits, and fainting as if one was dying. So, I mean, that's not a really good example. You know, so the Catholic Church, for instance, they use something called the Ritual Romanum. And I have read it, and it is very, it was not what I was expecting. It seemed in of itself sparse. There's no actual procedure or direction or instructions in how to even assess or perform an exorcism. I thought it would be something in terms of being helpful towards, the Catholic Church has had thousands of years, like 1,000 years of history in which it has had time to perform many exorcisms. But in fact, when you get deeper into the history of the Catholic Church and their association with exorcisms, you find out that they really don't know what to do. And they're only called in as a last resort because they have no real faculties or facilities to actually do something to, prevent or expel a demon or spirit out of a person. And there have been many accounts where people have died from tragedies, like Annalise from Germany, and there are a number of case studies where it just seems like it ends up either people get put in some kind of Vatican mental hospital and that they're drugged up, into like these intense states of almost being inebriated, but they are still possessed and they don't know how to, work on these individuals. And then oftentimes it just becomes, a publicity thing, like even with haunted houses and priests coming in. I mean, they often do not even want to get involved in an exorcism or to evaluate an exorcism to really determine if a person is possessed, because they feel that, in this modern age they also have to take into consideration science. But at the same token, we're looking at things like, just these terrible, I don't know. I don't know which way to explain it. It's so secretive. A lot of it cannot be documented, but the research has always showed more failures than success rates when it comes to the Catholic Church. So it's kind of like they don't know how to write out their instructions for this. They just possibly pick and choose, people who they feel is best suited for this position. That said, I don't want to demean the Catholic Church, but at the same time, I don't feel like, if your failures outweigh your success rates, then you must be doing something wrong. So, evaluating the Catholic Church in these terms is not always a good deal, because it wouldn't be like the first person I'd call, because they don't know really what to do, and they can't come out and say it because, they're always like the last resort. It's like the guy that has the most experience with it, but yet has never been successful at it, gets called in and does an exorcism. So, they try to make it a battle, in other words, a war with the spirit or demon that is possessing the person. And in doing so, this war that they create between the supernatural and the physical world, in essence, brings a lot of problems and issues of tragedy and death, once again, So, I mean, they can account for more tragedy and death in these instances than they do successes, like I said. So, with that being said, what can we learn from that? What can we learn of this battle of the Catholic Church of, utilizing what means they could in order to facilitate in achieving a better understanding of possession? The Catholic Church has always been bad at ridiculing or discrediting or ostracizing Christian mystics and Kabbalists and anyone that psychics and mediums. So in my essence, looking back at both, the part where the Mudangs in Korea are attempting to evoke the spirit to come forth and to present a message, what in the Catholic Church is trying to battle this out. Where can we draw the line in trying to figure out what is the best solution? And I think that's what I'm going to address next. So, when it comes to combining both Eastern and Western concepts of exorcism and spirit possession, what elements do we need to address to find a middle ground in which both sides can take into consideration the success rates to achieving, an outcome to the goal of, expulsion of a spirit or demon, and to give the person back control of their own being and life. Well, can the Catholic Church learn anything from the Korean shamans? Well, I think they can. I mean, why would a demon or entity or spirit take control and manifest a person and not have a specific message that it needs to convey to the rest of the world? I mean, it would seem illogical and almost foolish not to find out what was the purpose of this, possession, and how to safely exorcise that that demon or that spirit. Now, like I said, in Korean shamanism, they get pretty downright savage when it comes to, you know, doing a exorcism. And so, I mean, there's a lot of music involved, knives, sacrificing of animals, blood. I mean, there's just every element of, you know, I mean, now it's more theatrical. And then you have these, you know, mudangs who are saying, you know, I'm I'm doing this dance. I'm walking on swords. I'm the lineage of blah 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 sis boom ba, and you know, it's become more of like a status or something and less of a spiritual thing. They go through the motions of the dancing and the, but you know, and then they use the term, you know, I can cure you, I can cure you. So there's a lot of false, you know, false charlatans out there, and even in the Catholic Church we have, you know, a lot of false charlatans, you know. And so how do you deduce and find the real ones, you know, like the real psychic medium priests that are in the Catholic Church that could do this, and also the real psychic mediums who are able to do this, you know, with the Korean shamans? What can we learn? Well, what is wrong with providing, say, a blood ritual to a possessed individual, and because that's what they want. Um, Also, you know, what they need these things, you know, to be a part of the physical world, because they are no longer let's see, physical. They're no longer but they're of another dimension, you know, so they must use their energy to take over an individual. So, you know, they need elements of the physical world to be able to, you know, say what they need to, or do. And I think if the Catholic Church did follow this step of saying, well, you know, they're not going to go down a list of names of saints and martyrs, and then, you know, go through the Lord's Prayer and other invocation mantras and meditations of the Catholic Church, because they never, and they throw holy water. But oftentimes you see those Catholic priests and they're like, they don't really know what they're doing, you know, even though they might have experienced a lot. Are they actually creating more of a problem? I don't know. But you know, like I said, I think what needs to happen is we need, in my personal opinion, we need to take. I live in America, so by living in America, I have to understand two different cultures, and by understanding two different cultures, I'm better able to see and place where, you know, the pegs fit better versus, you know, the clashing. I have to figure out, okay, this part seems like it's working better and this part is working better. But I think that's what we need to do. We need to do that in America when it comes to things like spirituality, and see how each element works in tandem with the other element, and we can't discredit other spiritual beliefs or practices that seem too foreign or too dangerous in other people's you know, and narrow-minded people's opinions. So, you know, I don't, if I ever, I mean, I can say from my own experience, I have seen people who I assume are possessed by spirits or demons. I I can kind of sense what is going on and read what is wrong with them, you know. But I do not have the formal training in either instance. I'm neither a Catholic priest nor, you know, an ordained Korean shaman. But studying the two, I can see where the pieces can fit together and actually be more productive instead of more detrimental to the individuals that are experiencing the possessions and dying. So that's just what I believe. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.